Hello everyone, and welcome to your weekly MTA plan work video for the Queens Subways and Long Island Railroad for the weekend of Friday, August 10th, 2018, and lasting until Monday, August 13th, 2018. We have a lot to get into. We're of course going to talk about the familiar service changes for the Long Island Railroad that have been taking place the past 2 weeks. We will also discuss a lot of different service changes for Queens. And I have some very good news for people in Astoria that I am happily glad to share with you all in this week's service changes video. So without further ado, let's get started. First up, House of 7. 3:45 a.m. Saturday to 10 p.m. Sunday, August 11th and going into the 12th. Flushing bound 7 service will run express from 74th Street Broadway to Willard's Point due to track replacement. For service to those stations between 74th Street Broadway to Willard's Point, go to Willard's Point or Flushing Main Street and take any westbound train to complete your trip. So I know this is a headache. I know that not going to your station can be a big deal, especially coming from the city and you're heading eastbound. But if you want to go to Willard's Point or Flushing Main Street, you can do that and you can complete your trip to wherever you need to go. Just remember, you have to take it westbound. Partial M train service this weekend. What does this story entail? Beginning 8:15 p.m. Friday, August 10th, M service will end early between Forest Hill, 71st Avenue, and the Latte Exit Street due to signal improvements. From 6:30 a.m. to 12 midnight, Saturday and Sunday, August 11th to the 12th, Special M service will run between Metropolitan Avenue in Queens and 4750th Street, Rockefeller Center, and via the Q line between Lexington Avenue and 63rd Street and the 2nd Avenue line, 96th Street, due to structural improvements. So pretty much here's what's going to happen. What's going to happen is the M will be switching tracks at 57th Street. The signal will switch the train northbound, and this is the same thing that will happen southbound at the 57th Street station on 6th Avenue. The train will be bypassing it. Therefore, it will be switching onto the Q track. So once it goes to the Q track, it will be running on the 2nd Avenue subway. So if you're on the 2nd Avenue subway, I will quickly mention this. You might want to consider taking the M train this weekend. So yeah, that's very important to note. So if you're a rail fanner, this is a good weekend for you to take advantage of this special shuttle service for the M along the 2nd Avenue line. So pretty much, if you're interested, you might want to consider tagging along and maybe filming it, because I've seen Metrologist, he's one YouTuber on here as an example, do some rail fanning on weekends. I'm sure he's been watching my service changes videos, and if he is, I appreciate him for that. He's a guy that likes to do this type of stuff whenever there's special service on weekends. So maybe this weekend it will be a special weekend for him, and you might see a video maybe next week of him trying to do some rail fanning. For all the rail fanners here on YouTube, you are now encouraged by me to take advantage of this, because this is pretty interesting. Structural improvements are a big deal, but the good news is on the 2nd Avenue line there will be more service this weekend, so that's fantastic to hear. The good news is with regard to the Q, the 2nd Avenue line will not be impacted at all during this structural improvement work. It's pretty much only going to be the structure where the E and the M tunnel is on 53rd Street. So if you want a specific on that, that's where the MTA is doing the structural work. So it has nothing to do with the 2nd Avenue line. There will be regular Q service this weekend at 72nd, 86th, and 96th Street. So yeah, we got that out of the way. Let's talk about the R. 9:45 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Friday, August 10th, and 5:30 a.m. to 12 midnight Saturday and Sunday, August 11th to the 12th. And that amount of R trains will run express from 71st Avenue in Forest Hills to Queensboro Plaza due to signal improvements. For service between Forest Hills, 71st Avenue to Queensboro Plaza, pretty much if you want local service, I'm trying to be specific here. Let's say you need to get to Woodhaven Boulevard as an example. You can take the next eastbound train at Queensboro Plaza to complete your trip. Now, here are some service changes to the Queens Center Mall that you might want to consider if you are by these buses, or if you can transfer to them and don't really want to deal with the subways this weekend. For service to the mall, as I mentioned before, you can take an R train eastbound from Queensboro Plaza and it will be running locally. There will be no M train this weekend. Bus options are as following. You can take the Q38. The bus will stop at 59th Avenue and 57th Avenue. This is the route I recommend the most getting to the mall this weekend, the Q60 bus. It runs along Queens Boulevard direct, and the bus will stop at the mall right near Macy's, Queens Center Mall on the south side of Queens Boulevard, of course. As I just mentioned, the main entrance of the mall is pretty much right by Macy's. So pretty much if you need to get to that side of the mall, you can do that. Q53, the bus stops on Queens Boulevard, main entrance of Queens Center. The Q53, I'm not too sure about that route, but if you can get to it, you have that option. Q11, the bus stops on Queens Boulevard, the main entrance of Queens Center Mall, and the south side of Queens Boulevard at Hoffman Drive and Woodhaven Boulevard. Q21, the bus stops on Queens Boulevard, main entrance, of course, right by Macy's. Q29, the bus will stop on 57th Avenue, so if you're taking the Q29, please remember that. Q59, bus will stop on Queens Boulevard, the main entrance of Queens Center. Right, because I just remembered this. Before I make my point about the 88, I just want to remember something, that the 53, if you aren't interested, does stop at Jackson Heights, Roosevelt Avenue, and 74th Street Broadway Station. So if you don't want to take the subway, and you want to go to the mall this weekend, from Jackson Heights, you have the Q53 bus. So please remember you have that option this weekend. Also, I'm going to mention that if you can take the Q32 bus this weekend and you want to transfer to the Q53, you can do that at 74th Avenue. So this is the best option I recommend for most people in Queens. If you can, just take the Q88 bus. Friendly reminder, the last bus of the night usually leaves around 9:30ish. So if you're going to be spending the entire day at the mall, please remember to be at the bus stop on 92nd Street by Woodhaven Boulevard around 9:30 at night if you are going to be going home from the mall and you want direct service to Queens Village, Flushing, or anywhere else along that line. Alright, so very in-depth about your bus options this weekend. If you don't want to deal with the R train going to the mall, here are the service changes for the E. 9:45 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday, August 10th for the 13th. And that Mount E trains will skip Briarwood and 75th Avenue due to signal improvements. For service to those stations, you can take the Q60 bus or take an eastbound train at Kew Gardens Union Turnpike or Forest Hills, 71st Avenue. Or, if you want service to 75th Avenue, you can walk from Kew Gardens Union Turnpike. We have a couple other issues we need to discuss with the E, which will also affect the A and the C line on the 8th Avenue line this weekend. 9:45 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday, August 10th to the 13th. Downtown A, C, and E trains will skip the following stops: 23rd Street and Spring Street due to signal maintenance. Which I was even surprised to even find this out, but apparently, I don't know why I had to add that, but I added it just in case. A and C trains will also not stop at 50th Street. Apparently what happens is they probably run local on the weekends, so that's why I had to add that. For service to those stations, take an uptown train at Port Authority, 42nd Street, 14th Street, or Canal Street. F train, how are we looking on that? 9:45 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday, August 10th for the 13th. Manhattan Mountain F trains will skip Suffolk Boulevard, Briarwood, and 75th Avenue due to signal improvements. For service to those stations, you can take an eastbound train at Kew Gardens Union Turnpike or Forest Hills 71st Avenue. As I mentioned, you can take the Q60 bus, or if possible, or a faster way to 75th Avenue, and I mentioned this earlier, is by walking from Kew Gardens Union Turnpike. Astoria subway riders, the misery of no service on the weekend is ending! Yay! Finally! Now I'll give you the exclusive scoop about what's been going on in Astoria. Number one, my station in Astoria, Broadway, has been closed for the past couple of months due to station improvements. I was at 36th Street back on August 9th, Thursday, and I'm going to happily report it's a brand new station. It looks fresh. I'm hoping that's the same way my station, Broadway, will look, because honestly, just walking the extra 5 to 8 minutes to the Bel Air Diner on Broadway can be a big hassle. It really has been. In fact, the cashier told me that they're losing business because there's no Broadway train station. So how are people going to get to the station if they're coming from Ditmars? Exactly. So, with regards to that, I was on the elevated structure as I was coming from Queens Plaza, and pretty much it looks like they're almost done with the work. They're almost done with it. The MTA has confirmed that. So, after this weekend, you're going to notice when you take the N and the W in Astoria, starting on Monday, you're going to notice a whole lot smooth track on the Ditmars Boulevard Bridge, on the 31st Street Bridge. It's going to be amazing. It's about time. And thank goodness this is the last weekend of this nonsense. So, to recap, same time, same place, 3:45 a.m. this Saturday, ending at Sunday, 10 p.m. Free shuttle buses are going to replace the N trains between Ditmars and Queensboro Plaza. N service will run between Queensboro Plaza and Stillwell Avenue. Free shuttle buses will make all N stops between Ditmars Boulevard and Queensboro Plaza. And the good news is, I will happily report that the N will be stopping at Broadway. So if you want to grab a bite to eat at the Bel Air Diner on 21st Street, you have that option. The MTA confirmed that. You can transfer between trains and buses at Queensboro Plaza. So the following options will be the E, the R, the N, and the 7. You will have your options this weekend to get into the city and further points east. This is the last subject we will talk about on the subways. There is no J train this weekend due to structural improvements. The work will take place between 3:45 a.m. Saturday, August 11th to 10 p.m. Sunday, August 12th. There will be no trains between Crescent Street, Brooklyn, and Jamaica Center in Queens. E-trains and shuttle buses will provide alternate service. J service will operate between Broad Street and Crescent Street. Buses will make all J stops between Crescent Street and 121st Street and connect with the E train at Jamaica Van Wyck. For service between Crescent Street and 121st Street, take the shuttle bus. You can transfer from bus to train service at Crescent Street and Jamaica Van Wyck. So, if you need service on the J this weekend, please go to Jamaica Van Wyck and you can take the bus from there. If you need service, just remember that you can get train to bus service between Crescent and 121st Street. So, that's going to wrap up the subway update, and now we will talk about the Long Island Railroad. So pretty much it's the same stuff that we talked about last week and the week before. I'm going to quickly remind you about the double track project. Buses, of course, are going to replace weekend trains between Ronkonkoma and Hicksville. So pretty much customers are advised to consider using the Babylon, Montauk, Port Jefferson branches this weekend. Just a friendly reminder, I'm going to remind people in Mineola this weekend to please remember that no Ronkonkoma trains will be stopping at Mineola this weekend. So if you want express service, you're going to have to take the Oyster Bay branch if possible. Or worst case scenario, you can take the train, the Huntington Port Jefferson branch. But if possible, and I'm going to say this again, you can use the Babylon branch. That's your best bet if you're that desperate for service. Also, if possible, please consider using the Port Washington branch. Alright, so I don't really need to get into it that much, but I want to remind everybody that we will discuss this again next weekend, the 18th and the 19th, and the 25th and the 26th. So, just want to remind everybody, of course, but yeah. Next up, we will talk about PTC testing. We are going to be having hourly service between the following times. In the morning of Saturday, August 11th, between 7 a.m. and noon, and on the 12th, between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. The service will be reduced from half hourly to hourly to accommodate PTC control testing between Woodside and Bayside. I really don't need to get into it. This will also again take place next weekend. Let me make sure I'm highlighting it correctly. Next weekend and the 25th and the 26th. And lastly, just a reminder, no late night service between Atlantic Terminal and Jamaica. So if you can get to Penn Station this weekend, please do that. I don't need to get into the options again that much. This is going to be, of course, the last weekend. The MTA has confirmed that this will be the last weekend of no late night service, because there will be pretty much no track work in PTC nonsense on the Atlantic line next weekend. So that's pretty much it. That's going to wrap up your weekly service changes video. Always remember to plan an extra travel time, of course, to and from your destination. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you for watching. Until the next one, take care.